I'm not sure I'm going to keep any of it. Let's see. Hey, welcome back to my channel. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the Paul Rubens set that I've recently bought. I'll be doing some swatches and a couple of paintings, and also give you guys a bit of a sneak peek into a project that I'm doing at the moment. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that ultimately answers your questions as to whether this set is worth it for you. Here are some timestamps in case you want to go to specific parts. I got it because it was on offer and I've heard quite good things about the brand. Obviously everything in this video is my opinion. So at the moment it's £21.59, but when I bought it, it was actually £15. So for 24 paints and a 100% cotton sketchbook for £15, I just thought that was a really great offer. And I'd seen so much about it online that I was kind of curious to see, you know, are they worth the hype in a way? What I didn't realize at the time is that this set is actually the student grade version, whereas the pink set that is what I think more popular is actually the artist grade or professional version. So this is actually the students version, which is in part why it was so much cheaper. So it comes in a nice metal tin that has that little ring at the back so that you can hold it as you're painting, although the paint set itself is probably a bit too big for urban sketching. It comes with a piece of watercolor paper for swatching and then some information on the colors, but the information leaflet isn't in English, so I can't actually determine anything other than the fact that there is a wide range of colors. The set also comes with a thin piece of plastic that has the colors attached onto them, which I thought was a nice way to kind of keep track of what colors are what when you're looking at the pans. And also it means that I can kind of put them over my swatches to just see how accurate the colors actually are. The set itself consists of 4 pans that have kind of been put into this plastic tray, if you like, which has pros and cons. So one, it means that the colors themselves don't move around, but it does mean that it takes up more space than it needs to, and also there's no kind of like groove or space to put a brush in, which considering how big the pack is, it would have been nice to have. As I mentioned, they are 4 pans bigger than half pans, which is what I have here, what comes in a Winsor & Newton set, and the dimensions are listed up here. The set itself is slightly bigger than an A5 size, or I think Americans call it like half letter size. Slightly big, but not too bad, and definitely portable given the actual case itself. I thought I would start things off by doing a swatching on the card that they've provided. So in terms of the colors, they do have white, but I don't use white at all, and I don't see the point in swatching it, so I skipped that. For some reason the order on the swatch card is actually the colors going vertically, so it doesn't match the pan set, so I'll re-swatch everything so that it's a bit clearer which colors are which, but this was just a nice way to kind of get a good idea of how they work, and so far so good. So I'm going to swatch again, but this time in a way or in an order that makes more sense to me rather than what was provided in the swatch card. So the set itself comes with a good range of colours, and what I mean by that is that there's a good range of both warm and cool of each of the primary colours and a few extras, which is nice. So there's a nice cool yellow, which is Hansa Lemon, which tends to be the standard colour, and then there's 3 kind of warm yellows, and there's 1 cool red and 2 warm reds, so there's kind of like a good range. The one thing that I do find odd, and bearing in mind I'm still like quite new to the watercolor game, so I'm not great when it comes to pigments and etc etc, but I do know that some of the names that they used aren't common or typical of names for watercolor paints. Not that it's a massive issue, but also there's no like information on pigments, so it means that perhaps when I do improve, or when I do want to kind of utilize that knowledge of pigments a bit more, that could be a limiting factor. So if you understand like pigments, for example, and you know, oh, which ones are light fast and which ones are not, and you know, there's none of that information in this pack, or at least none of it in English, so that might be something that you will want to consider before getting this set. I didn't pre-wet the pans before painting, I just kind of started straight away to see how easily they reactivate. I mean, it wasn't the easiest to reactivate, as you can probably tell, or maybe it's a bit too fast to see. I had to kind of go back and forth and wet them maybe 2 or 3 times before I could pick up a good amount of paints, certainly for the browns and the reds. But other than that, it was okay. And that isn't uncommon for pans. It just means that you either have to pre-wet them or just accept that you're going to have to add a lot of water before they actually activate under the consistency that you want. None of the colors are granulating, which is a massive plus for me because I hate that. I was able to get nice gradients with them by adding water to kind of go from really saturated to not saturated. And if we do a comparison of what I ordered versus what I got, the yellows were quite accurate. The reds were not, so not as saturated as on the pieces of paper that were printed or on the card that was given. The blues were quite accurate, but in terms of the colours that I really didn't like, the raw sienna, I just didn't like it. It was just so weak, and it didn't matter how many times I added the colours, it just remained kind of desaturated and really pale and anemic looking. All the browns weren't as saturated as you think they would be, so that's the burnt sienna, the burnt umber, and the sepia on the side. Not as bad as the raw sienna, but still not that great. The red Madder Lakes, I really wanted like a deep and dark red, as well as the English red, and unfortunately neither of them lived up to the expectation. Although the red Madder Lake isn't the colour that I thought it was going to be, or the colour that it said it was going to be, I don't actually mind the colour so much. Whereas the English red, I actually just dislike. It's nothing like the colour I thought it was going to be, and it's like I think it's closer to a brown than an actual red, but it is what it is. And there's also a good range of greens, so 3 really nice greens. Again, not as dark as that you're led to believe on the swatch card, but all things considered, they're actually not that bad. So the only thing that I would love to have seen in addition in this set is maybe a Payne's grey, because I do use that quite a lot when I'm doing my florals. But instead you kind of get a black, which I don't tend to use much, but I mean, it gives me an opportunity to practice using different colours and colour mixing. So there is a star rating system that apparently lets you know what the light fastness is, but that in itself has been reported to not be that accurate. So in combination with blogs and other YouTubers and just looking on the internet, this is what I can find in terms of what colours will fade and what colours won't. And if you want to know more, there's a YouTuber called Kimberly Crick Art who kind of goes into it a bit more. But yeah, this is basically a summary of what I could find. And of note, both purples will fade, so you basically have to mix your own purple if you want it to be a colour that lasts. Now this is of course only of utmost importance if you're going to be painting and it's going to be hanging up and there's going to be like light around it. But if you're just doing paintings for yourself, for your sketchbook, or things that you're going to then scan and turn into digital art, then the light fastness isn't necessarily something that you have to be extra concerned with if you're happy with the colours. So I wanted to test the transparency of the colours, but can we take a quick moment to 1, hit the subscribe button, and 2, appreciate and admire the notebook that I've created, because I'm absolutely loving it. But anyway, in terms of the colours, they are actually all transparent, so you can see the black line going through them, all bar the Hansa yellow, which I think is quite common for yellows anyway. I think a lot of them, especially the ones that are called cadmium yellow, tend to not be quite transparent. So if you like quite transparent watercolours that you know are still vibrant but you can see the drawing underneath and you can layer, then these are definitely good for that. Next, I experimented with some colour mixing by creating 2 kind of colour wheels, if you like. So the first line is cool yellow, blue and red, and the line on the bottom is warm yellow, blue and red mixed together. And as I mentioned, there's no kind of pigment information, so I based this just on like eyeballing it. If colour theory is something that you want to know more about, then let me know down below in the comments, and as I continue to learn, I'll also continue to share. Looking at this, I really liked the warm colours at the bottom and the colours that I was able to mix with them, but the cool colours, so the colours on top, not so much apart from the green. And now I'm going to do some loose florals where it's a colour per flower, just so that we can see the colour range a bit better and see how they work and the different values that they have. I'll go through the pros and cons, but I'll also leave a kind of summary at the end so that you can look at it all in one place. But essentially, the main pros of the set itself is the fact that it's portable and in theory it is travel friendly, although perhaps not the best for urban sketching. It comes in a metal tin that has a palette, which is good for mixing, and it's waterproof so the paints are protected. But the cons are that there's no area for like a paintbrush, and a lot of space is wasted by the plastic that's in there, so the palette could have either been smaller than it is, or it could have had more paint, or it could have had space for a paintbrush if it had just been designed in a better way. Looking at the paint itself, the main pros are there's a good range of colours, there's a good set of primaries as well so that you can mix your own colours. They are transparent, all bar one, sorry, they're non-granulating and they can lift with good blending capabilities. The main cons are that the colours don't match the guides that's provided. There isn't much information on the light fastness, and some of the information that's provided is actually inaccurate, so just be mindful that a few of the colours will fade. The purples will fade, or they're called fugitive colours, so you'll have to mix your own. There are no pinks, there's no information on the pigments that are used to make the paints. I hated the English red, the raw sienna I wasn't a fan of, and just be mindful that when you do a paint wet on wet, the paint itself will be quite static, so you need to kind of work with it. Where you put the paint is where it's going to stay. Perhaps a pro and a con is the price. So I must admit, I do think it's quite affordable. The reason that I say it might be a con is because it's changed quite a lot in the 1 month that I've got it. So I bought it for £15, it's now just over £21, which is quite a difference. So if it's £15 for the sketchbook and the paints, then it's an absolute bargain and very competitive with other paints that size, because quite often the Cotman set, you get a 12 set for maybe £13, and obviously you don't get a sketchbook with it. If it is £21, then again, comparing it to the Cotman set, you get 24 sets for £26. So again, it's quite comparable to that, to the Sonnet, to the Van Gogh, and again, you wouldn't get the sketchbook. So it is quite affordable even if it is £21, but obviously a lot better if it is 15. However, the Paul Rubens Professional set is currently on sale on Amazon for £24 with the sketchbook as well. So it's only £3 more than the student version. So if I had to pick between those two, then I would have gone with the professional set. But it just so happened that when I was looking, the student version was £15 and the professional set I think was like £26 or so. I did do quite a few paintings, but unfortunately I ran out of storage, so I lost most of them, but I did manage to capture this. So in terms of final thoughts, I do like the set. I do think that it's quite good for beginners. Personally, I think part of me prefers the Cotman set compared to this, and the only reason I can think of is one, because of the colour choice, and two, because of how the Cotman works on wet and wet, and quite a lot of the time when I'm doing loose florals, I like a bit more blending and a bit more movement in the paints. That being said, I'll do a separate video where I compare everything side by side so that I can actually make my mind, because I'm not 100% sure. This is just a quick reminder of which colours will definitely fade. And then in terms of ratings, I'd say the wet on wet is a 3 out of 5, wet on dry is a 4 out of 5, blending is 3.5, layering was okay, it was 3. I am able to lift, like it actually lifts really nicely as long as like your paper will allow it. I was able to kind of correct mistakes or create highlights by lifting, as you can kind of see in this piece that I've done in the corner. So 3.5 out of 5. The glazing was 3.5 out of 5. No blooms, which is amazing, so 4 out of 5. And the set was non-granulating, which is a plus for me, although I do know that they have granulating colours if you wanted them specifically. The packaging was a 3.5 out of 5. The portability was a 4 out of 5. The price was 3 out of 5. Again, variable. The paint quality was 3 out of 5. The vibrancy was 3 out of 5. The colour range 3.5 out of 5, and the available information 1 out of 5. Like, it's really hard to find anything on this. Another random con or something to be aware of is the similarity between this paint set and the Sonnet set, and I'll talk about that in the quote-unquote scandal section a little bit later. Here's a final look at some of the paintings that I did with the Paul Rubens set. So you may or may not care about this, but it does appear that the Sonnet watercolours, which are the student grade version of the White Nights watercolours, are incredibly similar, if not the same, as this Paul Rubens set. So the colours are the same, the obscure numbers that don't relate to the pigments are the same. The only thing that's different is the case really and the branding. The only reason that I would care about this, or you perhaps may care about this, is just that if you like this set and you want to get this set, I would perhaps check to see what the price of the Sonnet is first, just so that you can get whichever one is cheaper, because they are essentially the same. And from what I can see online at the moment, they are the same price. But obviously you get the sketchbook with the Paul Rubens. Now, as to whether that is actually worth it or not is up to you. I'll only briefly touch on the sketchbook. So as I mentioned, the set comes with a watercolor sketchbook that has 100% cotton watercolor paper, 20 sheets of it. It has a nice hardback pink, I think leather or faux leather case, I'm not quite sure. Comes with a ribbon and an envelope on the back. It has perforated sheets, so all in all it was sounding good, but when I actually opened it I was quite disappointed. It's not good at all, so it's not really usable, and it's fresh out the pack and that's tearing, still tearing. I think this is going to go back. Quite disappointed with this. Can you see? I don't know if I'm going to keep it, to the extent that I wanted to return it, which is why I haven't made a video on it, because I didn't want to use it. I wanted to just return it straight. And the main issues that I was having was, one, that the sheets just kept tearing where I think the glue had seeped through the edges. So every time that I opened a page and I tried to lay it flat, it would tear part of the page and actually remove some of the sizing from the page. Two, some of the sheets aren't usable because they have stain. I'm not sure if that bit that I'm showing you is meant to be like that because so that it helps it open and lay flat, or if it's just a manufacturing issue. So I was quite disappointed with the sketchbook basically, and I didn't want to use it because I wanted to return it straight. But as I mentioned, I bought this a month ago and I've only just made the video, so it's kind of outside the return policy. So I'm going to try and contact the seller to see if I can get an exchange or a refund, but that's basically why I haven't used it, and that's basically been my experience of unboxing it. Not great. I've seen quite a few videos that say it's really good, so I'm trying to not be too harsh, but that's my initial opinion. Thank you so much for making it this far into the video. You're the real MVP. Let me know if you made it this far into the video by telling me a video suggestion, so a video that you think I should make. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week, or actually probably sooner, because I have so many ideas, so many projects that I want to get done, so many videos, so many ideas, and I want to get quite a few videos done before the new year. So yeah, see how that goes. Hopefully I am productive and I manage to get all those things done. But definitely hit the subscription button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the videos that are about to come out, and I will see you soon. Bye.